Oxford, Indiana, a quiet, tight-knit town where life moved at a gentle pace until one terrifying discovery shattered everything. Inside a reptile sanctuary owned by a passionate, exotic animal enthusiast, 36-year-old Savannah Calloway was found unresponsive on the floor. Wrapped tightly around her neck was an 8-foot reticulated python, a creature she raised, a creature she loved. What happened inside that home? How did a beloved pet become a deadly predator? If you're new here, welcome to the Animal Quest channel. We tell the real gripping stories behind the world's most chilling animal encounters. If this is the kind of content that keeps you thinking long after the video ends, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. It helps us bring more stories to light. Savannah Calloway wasn't just another face in the town of Oxford, Indiana. To those who knew her, she was vibrant, passionate, and fiercely devoted to animals that most people feared. Reptiles weren't just a hobby to her, they were her life. Savannah had spent years building her own personal reptile sanctuary, where she housed over 20 snakes and other exotic species. From Burmese pythons to boas and lizards, each animal was cared for with intense dedication. She wasn't just an enthusiast, she was a go-to person in the local exotic pet scene, known for her knowledge, calm demeanor, and commitment to reptile welfare. Friends often describe Savannah as someone who had a special connection with these creatures, someone who could handle a 100-pound python with the same ease others might show walking a dog. She wasn't reckless, she wasn't naive. In fact, she often advocated for responsible ownership and education. Her social media reflected that life. Photos of her handling massive snakes, cleaning enclosures, attending reptile expos, and promoting care standards. Oxford itself is a small Midwestern town with a population of just over 1,000. The kind of place where neighbors know each other and big city headlines feel a world away. Exotic pets aren't common there, not really. But Savannah was one of the few who challenged the norms. She lived in a house where the back room was converted into a full reptile habitat, equipped with heat lamps, temperature regulators, and feeding stations. It wasn't a secret. Local police even noted that they had previously interacted with Savannah in a positive context about her animals, and her setup was considered legal under Indiana law. But exotic pet ownership carries with it a fragile balance, fascination and danger. There's an allure to raising something wild, something untamed. The idea of forming a bond with a creature that could one day overpower you is both thrilling and deeply risky. While most snake owners insist that their reptiles are docile and unlikely to strike unless provoked, the reality is, these animals are still predators. Instinct doesn't always recognize affection. And on that warm summer day in 2019, Savannah Calloway's deep love for her animals met the sharp edge of that reality. A bond forged in trust suddenly turned fatal. October 30th, 2019. It was supposed to be a routine visit. Just after 8:30 in the evening, Benton County Sheriff's deputies received a call for a welfare check at Savannah Calloway's residence, a home she didn't live in, but one she used specifically to house her collection of reptiles. It was part of her daily routine to go there, tend to the animals, feed them, clean enclosures, and monitor their habitats. But on this particular day, Savannah's family hadn't heard from her. She hadn't returned home. She wasn't answering calls. Something didn't feel right. Deputies arrived at the house, a modest property on the edge of town. The front yard was quiet, no signs of distress, but inside was another story. What officers found would become one of the most disturbing scenes in Indiana's recent history. Savannah's body lay on the floor of the reptile room, unresponsive, motionless, face pale, and lips blue. Coiled tightly around her neck was one of her snakes, a reticulated python, estimated to be over 8 feet long and weighing more than 100 pounds. It wasn't aggressive, not hissing or striking. It was still, calm, but the damage had already been done. The responding officer radioed in the scene with urgency. "We've got a female, unconscious, appears to have been constricted by a large snake. She's not breathing." Paramedics rushed in, attempting resuscitation, but it was too late. Savannah was pronounced dead at the scene. The snake, authorities later confirmed, was not native to Indiana. It was one of over 140 reptiles Savannah had kept over time, a collection she maintained between her personal home and the reptile house she had built. According to officials, the snake was not free roaming. It had been taken out intentionally, likely for cleaning or exercise. Investigators believe the attack occurred during that process, possibly within seconds. Reticulated pythons are ambush predators. They can strike, coil, and constrict their prey in a single fluid motion. Once they begin squeezing, the pressure can cut off blood flow and restrict breathing within moments. Sheriff Don Munson, shaken, told reporters that in all his years of law enforcement, he had never seen anything like it. The woman appears to have been strangled by the snake. She was clearly very experienced, but with reptiles like these, it only takes one wrong move. There were no signs of a struggle elsewhere in the house, no signs of foul play, just the quiet aftermath of a moment gone terribly, fatally wrong. In those final minutes, it's believed Savannah was alone. No one witnessed the strike. No camera captured the moment. It was just her and the creature she had nurtured since it was small enough to fit in her hands. A pet she had raised, a predator she had trusted, a tragic end no one could have anticipated. The autopsy was completed within 24 hours. The results were chilling but conclusive. The official cause of death was asphyxiation due to compression of the neck, consistent with a constricting force. The python had squeezed until Savannah could no longer breathe, likely crushing her airway and cutting off circulation. According to the coroner, the pressure applied was more than enough to cause unconsciousness within seconds and death shortly after. There were no defensive wounds, no scratches or bruises that would suggest a struggle. Savannah never had a chance to fight back. News of her death spread quickly, not just through Oxford, but across the nation. The idea that an experienced reptile handler, someone who had raised and trained large snakes for years, could be killed by one of her own, left many asking the same question: how could this happen? Experts in herpetology, the study of reptiles and amphibians, weighed in publicly. Dr. Stephen R. Goldberg, a reptile behavior specialist, explained that although attacks like this are extremely rare, they're not impossible. Reticulated pythons are known for their strength, their unpredictable responses to stimuli, and their size. In captivity, a snake may associate movement or heat signatures with feeding. One misread cue, one mishandled routine, and instinct takes over. Another herpetologist echoed that sentiment, noting that although captive snakes can form patterns of behavior with handlers, they don't form bonds in the way dogs or cats might. There's no affection, no loyalty. The relationship is practical, functional. To the snake, everything is about survival, territory, and opportunity. Reticulated pythons, native to Southeast Asia, are among the largest snakes in the world. In the wild, they feed on monkeys, pigs, and even deer. Though they're non-venomous, their power lies in constriction, a method that, when applied to a human, can be just as lethal as any venom. Legally, Savannah's ownership of the snake was not a violation. In Indiana, there are few restrictions on the keeping of exotic animals like large constrictors. At the time of her death, Savannah owned around 20 snakes in that specific location, a property that had been approved as a reptile home and sanctuary. Authorities confirmed that there was no evidence of animal abuse, neglect, or illegal activity. Despite the tragic outcome, no criminal charges were filed. The snake was not euthanized. It was returned to the care of animal control and later placed with another licensed reptile handler. But the incident reignited a heated debate in local and national circles. Should private ownership of potentially deadly exotic animals be more tightly regulated? Some argued that what happened to Savannah was a rare accident, a one-in-a-million tragedy that shouldn't be used to punish responsible owners. Others insisted that regardless of experience, housing such powerful creatures in residential neighborhoods was an unnecessary risk, both to the owner and to the public. In the days that followed, lawmakers received petitions, animal rights groups called for reform, and across reptile communities, a quiet fear crept in, the kind that makes even the most seasoned handler look at their animals a little differently. Because no matter how much you trust them, some instincts never die. The snake involved in Savannah Calloway's death was a reticulated python, Malayapython reticulatus, a species known for its size, strength, and striking patterns. Native to Southeast Asia, these snakes are the longest in the world, with some individuals reaching over 20 feet in length. The python in Savannah's care measured approximately 8 feet, far from record-breaking, but still powerful enough to end a human life. Reticulated pythons are non-venomous constrictors. Their method of hunting relies on stealth, speed, and sheer force. They detect heat signatures from warm-blooded animals, strike quickly, and coil around their prey with incredible strength. Every time the prey exhales, the snake tightens its grip, gradually cutting off air and blood flow. Death comes from asphyxiation or cardiac arrest. In the wild, their diet consists of birds, rodents, primates, and even small deer. In captivity, they are typically fed rabbits, rats, or poultry, depending on their size and feeding schedule. Despite their intimidating reputation, attacks on humans are extremely rare. Most captive pythons live their entire lives without harming a single person. However, these are apex predators, and even in controlled environments, their natural instincts do not disappear. In fact, captivity can sometimes amplify unpredictable behavior. A snake used to a feeding schedule may misinterpret movement or scent as a signal for food. A missed cue, a hand placed too close, or a sudden motion can trigger a reflex that's impossible to stop once it begins. Experts warn that no amount of familiarity or routine can override millions of years of evolutionary wiring. Unlike domesticated animals, snakes do not bond with humans. They don't recognize faces, voices, or gestures of affection. Their behaviors are driven by environmental cues and survival instincts, nothing more. And Savannah was not the first to experience the deadly potential of a large python. In 2013, 2 young boys in New Brunswick, Canada, were killed by an African rock python that escaped its enclosure and attacked while they slept. In Indonesia, at least 2 adults have been swallowed whole by wild reticulated pythons in recent years. Incidents that stunned the world and served as a grim reminder of these snakes' capabilities. In Florida, where invasive Burmese pythons now thrive in the wild due to the exotic pet trade, there have been several near-fatal encounters with handlers. While these events are rare, they form a pattern, one that highlights the razor-thin line between fascination and fatality. With snakes of this size and power, one mistake is often one too many. And in Savannah's case, it wasn't the size of the python that mattered most. It was the moment, a single lapse, a silent shift from calm to chaos, and the outcome, irreversible. Savannah Calloway's death reignited a national conversation, one that's as complex as it is controversial. Who bears responsibility when an exotic pet turns deadly? Is it a tragic accident or a failure of oversight? For those who own exotic animals, the relationship is built on passion, experience, and trust. Owners like Savannah often view their animals as companions, not threats. They spend years studying, caring for, and building routines with their pets. But with that passion comes an immense responsibility, not only to the animals themselves, but to the people around them. Because the truth is, when you choose to keep a creature capable of killing you, the risk doesn't end at your front door. Exotic pet ownership in the United States is a legal patchwork. Different rules for different states, and in some cases, none at all. In Indiana, where Savannah lived, there are relatively few restrictions on keeping large constrictor snakes. No special license is required to own a reticulated python. No regular inspections. No mandated safety protocols. This lack of uniform regulation creates gaps, spaces where deadly mistakes can happen without warning, and often without legal consequence. Critics argue that these gaps pose a threat not only to owners, but to communities. What happens if a python escapes into a neighborhood? What if a child wanders into the wrong room, or an untrained visitor mishandles an animal? The potential for harm extends far beyond the owner's home, but others defend the right to own exotic animals as a matter of personal freedom. They point to the majority of responsible keepers, those who maintain strict safety standards and who go years, even decades, without a single incident. For them, tighter regulations feel like a punishment for the mistakes of a few. They argue that dogs, far more common household pets, injure or kill more people each year than all exotic animals combined. So why single out snakes? Still, Savannah's case serves as a stark reminder. All it takes is one misstep, one moment of vulnerability, one misunderstood signal, and the outcome can be devastating. Lawmakers in Indiana have yet to introduce new legislation in direct response to her death, but animal welfare groups and public safety advocates continue to push for change, calling for stricter registration laws, mandatory training, and emergency planning requirements for exotic pet owners. Because while freedom matters, so does safety. And in the quiet space between those two ideals, lives can be lost. There's something deeply human about the desire to connect with the wild, to tame it, to coexist with creatures that evoke both awe and fear. For exotic pet owners like Savannah Calloway, that bond runs far deeper than simple fascination. It becomes part of identity, a relationship built on routine, respect, and trust. Psychologists refer to this as anthropomorphism, the tendency to assign human characteristics to animals. Over time, owners may come to believe that their pets know them, recognize them, even love them. And while animals like dogs and cats have evolved alongside humans to reciprocate that connection, snakes have not. Reticulated pythons don't bond the way mammals do. They don't feel loyalty. Their behaviors are instinctive, not emotional. Yet for many keepers, the daily handling, the years of care, the absence of any prior incident can create a powerful illusion. The belief that the animal has grown used to them, that it knows not to harm them. That illusion can be comforting and dangerously misleading. Psychologists suggest that risk perception among exotic animal owners can become distorted over time. The more familiar the routine, the less threatening it feels. The snake is fed regularly. It hasn't struck before. It's calm in your presence. And gradually, the line between precaution and complacency begins to blur. Savannah was highly experienced. By all accounts, she knew how to handle her reptiles with care and discipline. But even the most seasoned handler can underestimate the silent variables: hunger, environmental stress, a misread movement. And when your life revolves around these animals, the possibility of danger can become easy to minimize, even deny. There's also a psychological element of control. Owning a predator, especially one that others fear, can create a sense of empowerment. It can become a way to stand apart, to feel a unique connection to nature, to prove mastery over something powerful. But control in these relationships is always conditional. And when that illusion breaks, the results can be irreversible. The news of Savannah Calloway's death sent shockwaves through the small town of Oxford, Indiana. A place known for its quiet streets and tight-knit community was suddenly in the national spotlight for all the wrong reasons. But beyond the headlines and expert analysis, there was grief, raw, immediate, and deeply personal. Within hours of the official announcement, neighbors began placing candles and flowers along the fence line of the reptile house she maintained. By nightfall, a small vigil had formed. Friends, family, and strangers gathered in silence, many still in disbelief. They remembered Savannah not as a headline, but as a daughter, a friend, a woman whose passion for animals had shaped her life and identity. Public statements from family members came shortly after. One relative, speaking through tears, described Savannah as fearless and gentle, someone who never met an animal she couldn't calm or care for. They acknowledged the danger of her chosen path, but insisted that her intentions had always been driven by love, not recklessness. Social media lit up with condolences. Reptile owners from around the country shared photos and messages in her honor. Some posted videos recalling her kindness at exotic pet expos and online forums. Others shared warnings, hard lessons learned from near misses, in hopes that her story might prevent another tragedy. In the weeks that followed, small initiatives began to take shape. A local animal education group launched a campaign in Savannah's name, promoting safety training and awareness for exotic pet owners. They began offering free seminars, distributing materials on emergency protocols, and lobbying for statewide improvements in exotic animal policy. Their message was clear: if Savannah, with all her experience, could fall victim to this kind of tragedy, no one was invincible. Her death became more than just a story. It became a spark, igniting conversations, reshaping perspectives, and reminding everyone of the delicate line between passion and peril. Savannah Calloway's tragic death wasn't just a singular event, it was a cautionary tale, a reminder that even those with years of experience can fall victim to the very animals they trust most. One of the clearest lessons is this: exotic animals, no matter how familiar, are not domestic pets. They don't operate on affection or loyalty. Their instincts are ancient, their power real, and their behavior unpredictable under the wrong conditions. Experts emphasize the importance of strict handling protocols. Always feed snakes in a separate enclosure to avoid food association with human presence. Use tools, not hands, to handle large snakes when possible. Never work alone, especially with species known for constriction. Have a second person nearby who's trained and capable of intervening in an emergency. Housing matters too. Enclosures must be secure, escape-proof, and clearly labeled. Emergency tools like snake hooks, cutting shears, and bite kits should always be within reach. A written emergency plan should be shared with family or roommates, just in case. From a regulatory standpoint, the incident underscores the need for consistent standards, not to punish responsible owners, but to protect them. Education, certification, and routine safety checks can make a life or death difference. And for the broader public, Savannah's story is a powerful wake-up call. Fascination must be met with responsibility. Passion must be guided by precaution, because in the world of exotic animal ownership, there's no room for error and no time for denial. Savannah Calloway's story is not just about tragedy, it's about trust, risk, and the thin line between wonder and danger. It reminds us that nature, no matter how controlled it may seem, is never truly tamed, and that behind every exotic animal kept in captivity lies a responsibility that must never be taken lightly. Her death was heartbreaking, but if her story sparks one more safety check, one more conversation, or one change in law that saves a life, then her memory will carry weight far beyond that quiet Indiana town. What do you think about exotic pet ownership? Should the laws be stricter? Do you believe the risks are worth the rewards? We want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story important or eye-opening, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel for more true wildlife encounters, and share this video to help raise awareness about the real dangers of exotic pets. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and respect the wild.